I've been speaking to Mark van Baal, Chief Executive of Follow This. They're a shareholder activist group based in Netherlands who was at the meeting today.
BP has really closed the door for its shareholders. It was clear they wanted to get over with it as soon as possible. So normally you're allowed to make a statement and then ask a question, but I was interrupted right from the start. The board gave the impression that the shareholder meeting is a chore.
You say that, and you and many other shareholders may not have been happy with that, but only 18% of shareholders voted against BP's chair, Albert Manifold. Most people seem to be quite happy with him.
Now, you have to take into account that normally a new chair gets 99% of the votes. If a new chair gets 18% of the votes against him, that's extremely embarrassing. A very strong signal from shareholders that they're not happy with how he's managing the company, that he has exacerbated the already shaky governance his predecessor bequeathed him. Normally, a new chair gets the benefit of the doubt. 18% is an embarrassment.
Can we talk about the climate change reporting of BP? More than 50% of shareholders voted against a BP plan to scrap some of its existing climate reporting. What does that tell us about where the shareholders are and where the company is at the moment?
The company is at the moment that they want to fully focus on oil and gas and don't do anything about clean energy. And a majority of the shareholders wants them to at least report what they do about the climate crisis, because these companies are the biggest emitters of CO2. So the shareholders say, okay, you want to scrap all your climate reporting? No way. You have to report to your shareholders who have far bigger interest than only in your company. Imagine you're a pension fund. You are invested in the global economy. The global economy is under threat of the climate crisis. Your pensioners will lose money because of floods, extreme weather, you name it. And therefore, the shareholders, specifically the long-term shareholders, want to know how these companies deal with the climate crisis, what they do about it.
Yeah, but you can understand why a company at the moment would want to focus on oil and gas with those prices rising. That's going to bring shareholders profits.
Yes, but for shareholders, the most important thing is shareholder value on the medium and long term, not on the short term. Of course, we have higher oil prices, but that's very temporary. These companies have to come to terms with the fact that in the 2030s, the demand for oil and gas will go down, and they have no plan for it.
It's not going to go down as quickly as we thought, is it? Can I ask you a wider question? Because, you are an activist shareholder on this issue, looking at many companies. What we're seeing with BP and its pivot to some extent away from green energy back to fossil fuels, are we seeing that across the industry?
Yes, let's take into account that no oil major has ever made any serious effort to transition to clean energy. They all want to look like green energy companies, but still remain fossil fuel companies. Their investments in clean energy were always around 10% max, so 90% went to fossil fuel. So they never really tried.
But why is that? Isn't that because they think they'll just make more profits there?
I think the only reason is that they want to stay in their comfort zone, the business model they have made their career on. Every outsider sees that clean energy is getting cheaper, fossil fuels are getting more expensive, governments are taking action, electric cars are taking over the market. So all the signals are that we are in an energy transition, and the boards of these companies just want to ignore it. So shareholders should really worry about the stubbornness of these companies to stick with a business model that soon will be outdated.
We talk a lot about companies, climate change, which direction they're heading in. That was an important part of today. But there was a wider issue as well for many shareholders like yourself, which is one of governance of BP.
Yeah, BP is trying to break down governance. They try to break down shareholder rights. And they did that by refusing our resolution. And they tried to do that by scrapping climate reporting. So BP wants to distance themselves as far as possible from the shareholders. That didn't go down well with a majority of the shareholders.
Mark van Baal there from Follow This, who was at that meeting today.